Hello. A while back, I made a thing for a friend of mine who does sewing, and she asked me if I could make her a rack to hold what she called a rotating mat and some rulers. And she sent a couple pictures of the mat and some examples of the type of rack she was talking about. So when she said rulers, I was thinking, rulers. So I'm picturing something along these lines. And by the way, I asked Grok to generate an example because I couldn't find a good picture to show you what I was thinking. And this is the result. It seems Grok thinks a ruler is just a stick with some random lines and symbols on it. Pretty funny, actually. Here's a couple more examples of rulers according to Grok. Apparently these are alien rulers, and I don't know what these things are. Check this one out. 1, 1, 1. 2 something 3, and I guess we need a few extra lines and some extra space to get to alien 6, then some more 3s and 4s just for, well, good measure. But somehow we got to 19. Okay, well, enough making fun of AI. So anyway, as it turns out, I was thinking all wrong, and in the sewing and quilting world, this is not a ruler. This is a ruler. So I'm glad I asked a few extra questions. But that simplifies the build, actually, since I don't need a separate section for the rulers as I was thinking of them. So I figured I'd build along these lines, and I'd make it out of some pretty wood, so I planned on using some of the cedar I have, and I started cutting some slats out of some leftover boards that I had planed down to about a ½ inch thick. But I needed some boards for the back, and I had some rough boards off of the sawmill, so I started to plane those down. After I started seeing these go through the planer, though, I started rethinking the design. These boards had some natural live edges and grain features that shouldn't go to waste. I scrapped the slats design and figured I'd just use a couple boards for the back and 2 more for the front and keep the live edges to make it more visually interesting. Some of the grain is really striking, so I wanted to get some of that for the front. These were boards that would be waste from most sawmill operations and would be thrown out, but I'm going to make use of them. I needed to take off some of the bark that was still on the inside opening on this board, but it came off pretty easily for the most part. I still needed to pry some out with an old chisel, though. I think I can get both of the sides out of this one small board, so I'm measuring 2 inches for the bottom width and 3½ inches for the top and marking the angle. This board is short enough that I can make the cut on the miter saw with a guide board clamped in, which makes it very stable and safe to hold the board at 90 degrees to the fence for making cuts like this. Basically, the one cut gave me 2 pieces with the same angle cut, and now all I have to do is use the first one to mark the second one and then rip it down on the straight edge to make it an exact duplicate of the first. I used that board and the mark to set the fence on the table saw, then make the rip cut. Now for some cleanup of those live edges. I'm just giving them a quick going over with the random orbit sander. I think I had 120 or 150 grit on there. Using these live edge boards instead of the slats is definitely more work and more sanding, but I think it'll be worth it. It's kind of oddly satisfying watching the sander make a pretty noticeable difference on cleaning up that live edge. After I did that, I decided to carry the live edge look onto the ends of these boards, and for that I'm using the wood shaper disc on the grinder, otherwise known as the Finger Eater 9000. And that's why I'm using the heavy leather welding gloves. Gives me a little protection if this thing decides to go somewhere I don't really want it to go. And notice also that unlike a lot of people that use these, and you see them on YouTube, I do have the guard in place, and that's between my hand and the spinning wheel of destruction. If you guys ever decide to use one of these, be careful. Use some heavy gloves, keep the guard on, and pay attention to where you point this thing. Also, it makes a lot of dust, so I'm wearing a dust mask and I have the windows and doors open, as you can kind of tell by the blue tarp blowing around in the background. And if you guys are wondering, that's the opening between the wood shop and the mechanical shop that I don't have doors on yet. so the tarp helps contain some of the sawdust to the wood shop. I'm going to build those doors, and that'll be in a future video at some point. So after I get done with the wood gouger, I need to smooth out the rough and jagged edges that thing leaves, so it's back to sanding with the random orbit sander. And I basically spent the rest of the afternoon sanding. Like I said, more work doing it this way, but hopefully it'll be worth it. After the power sanding, I'd do some hand sanding as well. That's the best way to get the corners rounded more smoothly and get some areas on the live edges, because my fingers can conform better to what the power sander doesn't. Finally got them pretty much done though, and decided to blow them off with compressed air along with myself and call it a day. And then the next morning I got started on, well, more sanding. I used my new detail sander to get into those tiny spaces that I couldn't really get with anything else. Pretty handy little gadgets for that. Then I looked at all my parts and pieces and remembered I hadn't made the bottom for this bin yet, so I cut a piece down to length on the miter saw. From this piece, just barely long enough. I ripped one edge on the table saw to match the angle on the front pieces, which was about 7.5 degrees, and now it's time for assembly. I use a quick clamp to hold it in place while I drill and countersink for screws through the bottom into the sides. I'm not worried about hiding these screws as they're on the bottom and won't really be seen when this thing is hanging on the wall. A plastic straw cut in an angle makes quick work of cleaning up the glue squeeze out on those inside corners. Then I take a look at how I want these boards on the front. I look at them several different ways and nothing really jumps out at me as being better than anything else, so I ended up just putting them basically as I had them at first. Then I put a little glue on for the first one and, whoops, forgot about that open spot in that board. So I wipe off some of the glue there, then put the board on. I'm not really depending on this glue, but I figure it can't hurt. I thought about just using glue and brads, but I didn't really want the brad holes showing on the front of this one, so I decided on screws for the main holding power, and then I'll put in plugs to hide the screws. So I adjusted my countersinking pilot hole bit to countersink deeper to make room for the plugs, and I'm using 1.5-inch screws here. After the first screw, I checked and it was just a tiny bit out of square, so I put a clamp on corner to corner to hold it while I put the rest of the screws in that first board, and it was fine. Now the bottom front board, and I was careful on this one to not put glue on that open spot where it didn't belong, so it was a little cleaner installation on this one. Looks okay so far, I think, so time for the backboards to go on. First a little glue cleanup in those corners though. Kind of lined it up from the front, and I was going to try to hold it all together with my hands and flip it over, but that was going to be a calamity, so I used a couple of quick clamps to hold the one board in place, and then I could hold the other single board okay for the flip. Just got to make sure I line up those holes right so I don't miss. Here again on these screws, it doesn't matter if they show as this is the back and it'll be against the wall. So I readjusted my countersink to a more shallow setting so the screws go just below the surface. Time to cut some plugs for those screw holes on the front. I'm using a plug cutter bit in my little drill press. This is one thing that's way better with a drill press, as I think this type of bit would tend to walk around on you if you tried to use it with a hand drill. But in a pinch, you could always drill a hole in a small board the size of the outside of this bit and then clamp it onto your piece and use it as a guide block. I've seen people use a bandsaw or table saw to cut the board to release the plugs, but I'm just using the Norm Abram method and just popping them out with a screwdriver. Normally they just fall out when you break them, and a couple of them did, but most of them wanted to be stubborn, so I had to resort to the needle nose pliers to get them out. With a good supply of plugs, I try to find one for each hole that is a decent match for the surrounding wood, which isn't always easy because you're looking at the end grain of a little plug that's 3/8 of an inch wide, but I try to get them close anyway. Then with just a little dab of glue on each one, I stick them in there and give them a little tap, tap, taparoo with my mallet.
Just tap it in. Just tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, taparoo.
I wiped off the excess glue, then added some blue painter's tape to protect the surface, and used my little trim saw to cut them off. This isn't a flush cut saw, meaning the teeth are set to both sides, so the painter's tape helps raise the blade slightly so it doesn't scratch. Then the random orbit sander makes quick work of taking them down flush and blending them in. And by doing it when the glue is still a little wet, it helps fill in any gaps or cracks there might be with the old glue and sawdust. Not the greatest match on grain direction and color, but it's acceptable, and it definitely looks better than the exposed screws. For finish, I'm going with a water-based clear polyurethane. The oil finishes tend to blotch the light sapwood on this cedar, so I think this will tend to lessen that. At least that's what I'm hoping. I tried a foam brush on this, but I didn't like it. It's more of a pad than a brush, and the foam tends to hold the liquid instead of spreading it on the surface. I switched to a conventional brush after a bit. I probably should have finished the insides of this before I put it together, but I did manage to get the inside coated. I'll call it good on the inside with one coat and put 2 or 3 coats on the outside. I'm installing a couple of keyhole style hangers on the back, and it's done and ready for them to pick up. I'll try to give you a picture of it in use in a future video so you can see that. And if I forget, you can remind me. But for now, I guess it'll do it for this one. See ya.